some of those to my grandchild. That's them.
All right, Jen, you start.
Hello.
You gotta work. That's good. Excuse me.
Hi, everyone. We're proud to be here with all of you today, just ahead of Mother's Day, to talk about California's commitment to our children and to advance a parent's agenda, outlining how this administration is tackling the costs and challenges that families, and especially young parents, face in today's day and age. We often repeat the adage that budgets are a statement of our values. Well, this budget shows that in California, we value our children and our parents, and we also value our women. So I want to take a minute to look around this room and acknowledge one of the many reasons why we're here today. I've met with each of these women behind me, Senators Hanna, Beth Jackson, Connie Leyva, and Holly Mitchell, and Assembly members Lorena Gonzalez-Fletcher, Cristina Garcia, Monique Limon, and Tasha Borner-Horvath, and have heard their passionate advocacy for the issues that impact not just women's lives, but all of our lives. I've long been an advocate for increasing women's representation in leadership, and these women are proof of why it matters. Because when enough women are in leadership, when women have seats at the tables of power, alongside a few good men, of course, wink, wink, and when women's issues are seen for what they really are, issues that affect every single one of us, families, communities, and our entire society is better off. So I want to thank each and every one of you, from your focus on policies like paid family leave, to affordable childcare, and yes, to pay equity too, to removing taxes on menstrual products and diapers, taxes that unfairly target low-income women and mothers especially. You all have been tireless in your advocacy for the investments that California needs to create a brighter and more equitable future for all of us. I'm also excited to be here today to talk about our investment in the Earned Income Tax Credit. As first partner, I've traveled the state and met with families, mothers in particular, hearing firsthand about the tremendous benefits of this cost of living refund. I've heard from mothers who say it's the difference that's enabled them to pay for food on the table, buy their children clothes, and even pursue higher education. In January, the governor proposed more than doubling our investments in this cost of living refund. And now I'm proud that the governor's May revise increases the proposed credit for families with children under the age of 6 to $1,000. So the governor and I are proud parents to 4 young children, and these issues do hit close to home. Nothing is more important than our children's futures, and we know that this is a sentiment shared by families across our state. So I couldn't be prouder to say that in California, we are fighting for a future where our daughters will be valued equally to our sons, a California where every single child, no matter the zip code or the family that they're born into, will have the best possible start in life, and a California where every parent will have the support they need to build the best possible future for their children. And now it is my honor to introduce our next speaker, one of the bold leaders I just spoke about, Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez-Fletcher. Thank you.
So I cannot express the excitement that I have today when I got the phone call telling me that the governor is adding into his May revise the cost of making diapers tax-free. For many of you who've covered this issue, you know we have been working on this for 5 years now. I've seen some of you get pregnant, give birth, have babies, understand the issue a little bit more. And what we know is 1 of every 3 families admits to not having enough diapers to properly diaper their child, 1 in 3. That means children, babies are going with dirty diapers, reusing diapers, and parents are feeling the stress of that. This is a societal issue. And we know that this tax break will give the average family in California $100 to $120 per year per child. That's enough to diaper your child for a full month. This will have a real effect for a community that we know are at their most economically vulnerable. In California, over 50% of the children are born on Medi-Cal. We know that young parents struggle, and we know that diapers are a necessity not only for the health of a child, but to drop your child off at childcare. If you want a job, you have to have diapers. So this will go a long way in helping those families who are struggling to make ends meet, to ensure that their child's not crying all night because they're sitting in a dirty diaper, to be able to provide that in a way that meets the needs of that baby. It is so important that we have a governor and a first partner who are parents of young children and understand this. I cannot tell you the frustration we've been through in trying to explain this to people that have never bought diapers. But when you have folks who understand from their own personal experience just how expensive that can be, and to put themselves in the shoes of average Californians and saying, how can we make life just a little bit better? So I want to thank the governor and the first partner for this. And I'm sure my colleagues will want to thank you so I can quit talking about diapers now, which kind of won't happen, but just in case. With that, all right, I'm not sure how this works, but I would love to bring it up my colleague who has fought with me. These fights we've done together and separate. We've tried everything. Assemblywoman Christina Garcia to talk about her proposal.
And I will continue to talk about periods past this budget. But good afternoon, buenas tardes. Like Ms. Gonzalez said, we've been working on this for a handful of years now, and so it's exciting to be here today. And I also want to thank Governor Newsom and the first partner, Jennifer, for having us here today and finally sending the message that our bodies are not a luxury, that being born with a uterus, that having a period every month is not something that's a luxury, and it's also not something to be ashamed about out there. And so I'm excited that we're finally going to remove the tax on menstrual products out there. During the last 4 years, this discussion started with a lot of passion, and I was confident it was going to get done in the first year, and it's been followed with a lot of frustration the last 4 years out there. But the discussion hasn't been in vain. I've heard from young girls who tell me that they use socks and newspapers, or that they miss school. I hear from women who tell me they just don't go to work when they can't afford these products, or they let their products in their bodies longer than they should, and they end up sick out there. And so getting rid of the tax makes it more affordable, but it also tells all women out there that our bodies are just as important as men's bodies out there. I tell folks that it's not just about being poor, but what happens when I'm at work and I don't have access to these products and I'm in the middle of negotiations? I could stay in negotiations and have an accident, or I could go out and spend half an hour trying to find that tampon and that pad or that cup to get me through that. And so it's for all of us. When we don't have access to these products, we are missing out on part of society out there on a regular basis. So I'm excited for this today. For the first time in 3 years, I'm able to think about what's next in the menstrual equity discussion, right? And so I started off by telling you that I'm not done talking about this because I have young women out there who are advocating, who continue to advocate, who have told me, you know what I want? I want a school where they talk to me about the different products that are out there so that I get to make a choice that's right for me and right for my body. And so I think we need to be having those discussions as we normalize our bodies, as we talk about our periods out there, as we talk about the fact that there's nothing to be ashamed of by being born a woman out there. And so we have a long way to go out there. And so I'm excited to celebrate. I'm excited to celebrate with all the advocates who have been beating the drum for the last 4 years, who started here in California with the first bill. And while we fell behind and a dozen states have beat us to the punch, haven't stopped. And because of them, this has become an international discussion. And so today I'm celebrating with all of them. We're all thankful to the governor and the first partner for making sure that we tell the message that our bodies matter, that our biology matters, and our budget now reflects that. And for the first time, we're going to have a gender-neutral tax code out there. So I have exceeded my time, but I do want to say this because this is going to help a lot of people out there who speak lots of languages, incluyendo español. So para mi gente que está viendo en español en Telemundo, en Univisión, esto es una victoria para las mujeres. Y el mensaje que estamos dando hoy con el gobernador y con la señora es de que nuestros cuerpos importan, que nosotros como mujeres somos tan importantes como los hombres y que nuestros presupuestos van a representarnos a todos en el futuro. Gracias. Oh, next. I am awesome. Oh, okay. So it's my pleasure to introduce Senator Holly Mitchell, who has been an advocate and a mentor for so many of us.
Good afternoon. First of all, Governor, thank you very much for having the courage and being man enough to stand here in the middle of these kinds of conversations. We appreciate you. I know it's not easy, but we appreciate you. First of all, I'd like to join with my colleagues in the Women's Caucus as we celebrate that children living in poverty will have greater continuity of care and more stability in their lives to achieve lifelong success with the incorporation of SB 321 into the May Revise. In 2008, when I got mad enough to leave the agency that I loved and ran, Crystal Stairs, to run for public office, I was running the largest stage one, I was managing the largest stage one contract in the country. And I had to look in the face of child care providers and mothers and fathers every day to try to explain to them a very complex early care and education system. When they were simply saying, I'm a CalWorks recipient, I am receiving this entitlement, but I am working hard to go to school, get a job, and create a life for my children. Why is it so complicated? Why are the rules different in every stage of this transition? And we understood that. And so it has taken these 10 plus years to get to a point where we could put some logic and reason into our early care and education system. The stage one contract, the stage one program in CalWorks is when the families are most vulnerable. They're transitioning off of cash aid and they're trying to navigate a very bureaucratic system. The inclusion of SB 321 into the May Revise will create stability and continuity. And anyone out there who's a parent or a grandparent or a tia or an uncle, understand that continuity of care is what's important. A high quality, affordable, consistent child care experience is what helps children thrive. So this bill will allow that. As long as you're in stage one, you'll have continuity of care. So if you're in school, part-time job, job training, whatever the case is, we'll factor in your transportation time if you're on public transportation. I'm thrilled that we are continuing to recognize that children don't get do-overs. And so as we have taken years to try to rebuild an early care and education system that is worthy of the children who are in it, we have to recognize that they're not going to stay 3 for 5 years to allow policymakers and the grown-ups in the room to figure it out and catch up with the funding. So SB 321, included in the May Revise, will go very far in making sure that these children have all the resources they need in California to thrive. Thanks to the governor and the first partner and all of the advocates and stakeholders who have worked tirelessly for years to get this into the budget. Thank you, sir. And next, it's my pleasure to bring forward my former seatmate, a long-term member of the Women's Caucus when she was in the Assembly years ago, who recognized these issues were important then, and she's come back for a second act to make sure that paid family leave and all these issues continue to be on the forefront of our agenda. State Senator Hanna Beth Jackson.
Thank you, Holly. Well, good afternoon. You know, children don't get a second act, but parents and particularly grandparents discover they frequently do, because they frequently are called upon to try to care for their grandchildren, and grandchildren are frequently called upon to care for their grandparents. So we have a multi-generational community, and in this state we have taken the lead in trying to recognize that, and yet we are still so far behind. So I want to also stand proudly with Governor Newsom and First Partner Jennifer Siebel Newsom and the Legislative Women's Caucus, recognizing the importance of these issues. You know, I stand here and I look out and we're seeing more and more women. We still see men primarily with the cameras and what have you. But when you think about it, we need in our society today to have both moms and dads, both parents or family members there to help care for our families. We aren't just going out into the workplace and when we get home everything is perfect and it's like a father knows best and Leave It to Beaver, how everything seemed to be perfect, perfect house, perfectly manicured wife, perfectly cared for children. That is not the world we live in. We have challenges today because more and more women are in the workforce than ever before. What do we do with our children? What do we do with our aging parents? What do we do when we have a family member who is sick? The research is clear. Paid family leave has enormous benefits for children, for families, for parents, and for the economy. And California, as I mentioned, has led the way implementing the nation's first paid family leave program 15 years ago. But I am pleased that we are here today expanding on that, because we recognize that giving only 6 weeks of leave isn't going to provide the kind of care for a newborn. So this year I have introduced legislation with the blessing of the first partner. We can talk about that later. And certainly with so many of my colleagues here today, so that we can assure that for newborns, we get, hopefully, as we move forward, our goal is at some point in time, as soon as possible, to have 6 months when a parent and a partner, designated person, if not a spouse, will be able to spend that 3 months for job-protected, primarily paid family leave to care for that newborn. We also need to be able to care for our loved ones when they get sick. So we are expanding the definition of family member to include grandparents and grandchildren and in-laws and all the other relationships that today we call family. So I'm very excited to announce that the governor's May revise will expand paid family leave by 2 weeks, from 6 weeks to 8 weeks for bonding and caregiving starting July 1, 2020. Now, we still have work to do to ensure that the leave is job protected. Very important, and I have legislation again that is the women's priority legislation, SB 135, which includes that. I look forward to continuing that discussion. We really need to move this forward, and thanks to the governor and the first partner for prioritizing gender equality and pursuing bold proposals that address the realities of our modern working families, that recognize that children need diapers until they're trained out of them, that we as women have physical needs that should be met, that must be met, that are an integral part of who we are as a people and who we are as a state. And with that, I want to turn the microphone to Senator Connie Leyva, who is the chair of the Legislative Women's Caucus and who has been leading the fight on many of these issues as well.
Thank you, Senator. Good afternoon. What a pleasure to be here today. As the chair of the Women's Caucus, along with my vice chair, Assemblymember Monique Limon, you know, in this job, when you legislate, not every day is exciting. A lot of days aren't that exciting. But today we are thrilled to be here, and I'm thrilled to be here with all these women with the Legislative Women's Caucus who have been doing this work for so many years, but even more importantly, who is at the top matters. And we are so lucky to have a governor who gets these issues and a first partner that if maybe he doesn't get it, I bet she'll give him a little nudge and let him know. So I could go on and repeat everything that my colleagues have said, but I would really just like to say how excited we are to be here today, because this is a step forward for women, it's a step forward for working families, and it's a step forward for California. So a huge thank you to the governor and to the first partner. And now it's my pleasure to get to introduce an enlightened man, the governor of the great state of California, Governor Gavin Newsom.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, this is humbling, being in the presence of remarkable people that all just happen to be women. If you ever had any doubt about the leadership in the state, look behind me, to my left and right. We are blessed, and I'm enlivened by that leadership, and I am grateful for it, and I'm really here to amplify their efforts. These are announcements that we have made, announcements we're making today that are efforts that have been underway for years and years and years. And had it not been for those efforts, had it not been for the trial and error, running a little bit short of crossing the finish line, the conditions would not be right for the announcement we're making today. And so I want to just reinforce my gratitude to the leaders assembled here and thank them on behalf of millions and millions of Californians that will benefit because of their devotion to the cause of equality, because of their commitment to low-income families, because of their commitment to highlighting issues that have long needed to be highlighted. Issues of diapers, for me, it's personal. We have 4 young kids, 2 still in diapers. We're working on 1. It's taken a little longer, stubbornly, than it should. But it's an issue that, you know, had you not had kids, perhaps you can intellectualize it. But boy, I can tell you, I don't care how well you're doing, it hits the pocketbook for families, not just low-income families, middle-income families. And I think this step is long overdue. It was noted that a number of other states have actually taken the leadership. It wasn't because we weren't out there to begin with. We just didn't get it over the finish line. But we're now joining a number of other states in advancing this effort to reduce the costs. And by the way, I just want to reinforce the costs. There are estimates that roughly 14% of after-tax income of low-income family, 14%, just go to pay for diapers, just to pay for diapers. So this is indeed a big deal. On the issue of menstrual products, Holly's right. It's not the most comfortable place to be standing talking about these issues. I'm just being honest about that. Perhaps it's my Irish Catholic heritage, but it's important. So guys, pay attention. You know, listen, learn. You know, don't take things for granted. This is real. And we need to attach ourselves to addressing this issue as well. And so let me just compliment the tenacity and the resolve and the leadership. Christina, you've been incredible on this, and I don't think we've had. My gosh, she's given me some gifts, but there's a poster outside. I can't walk the streets without her sharing her point of view on this, and I've heard it for years. You got me, so I'm here, and I'm proud. By the way, just to underscore, the menstrual tax, 11 states have advanced that tax. A diaper, 8 states. So we are joining those other states. The cost is, look, it's not insignificant. State and local annualizes at about $76 million. For the state itself, it's about a $35 million impact. You'll hear more about that in the May revise. We can afford to do that, and it's the right thing to do. On the other issues, let me just acknowledge, Hanna Beth Jackson is just, my wife and my chief of staff, the issue of paid family leave, top of the agenda, not near the top of the agenda. There's no substitute. There are no government programs that can substitute the time with a loved one. And for fiscal conservatives, I can imagine there's perhaps no more important issue than paid family leave. If you want to reduce the cost to government, if you want to increase the trajectory in terms of opportunity of a young child's life, then you've got to begin at the beginning. And providing that bond, providing the time for families that are in stress because of a newborn and stress because they're balancing that in the workplace. This is incredibly important. I will say it's a stubborn issue because we want to get to 6 months. I'm committed 6 months. I've been here 5 months. So give me a little time to figure this out, but we are figuring it out. And I'm glad we're getting extra 2 weeks. By the way, it's 2 weeks per parent. So it's potentially another month for a child. But we're committed to getting to your goal. We're committed to getting to my wife's goal, the goal I think all of us share, the goal that my chief of staff shares, and I think millions of not only Californians, but tens of millions of Americans, because California's leadership is going to be critical to advance this cause all across the country. As you know, we formed this task force and working group. We're finding creative ways, reducing the reserve account. We're paying off some debt that was in the reserve account. We are being as creative as possible. Know that this animates our efforts, and we will get to 6 months. How soon we do it, I don't know, but we're not giving up until we achieve that. So this is an important milestone because, frankly, in January, I didn't know we could even do this. And I'm very grateful that we are. On the EITC, what more can you say? Arguably no greater anti-poverty measure than the Earned Income Tax Credit, Working Families Tax Credit. California, because of leadership, those assembled here and those upstairs over the last few years, finally catching up, doing a statewide EITC. I was frustrated as a former mayor. I did a local EITC out of frustration at the time. The state didn't do it, but the state needs to do more. We're going from $400 million to $1 billion in January. In the May revise, I'll announce later this week, we're going from $400 million to $1.2 billion in the EITC. We are going to fulfill the commitment. This will take a little bit more time, but we're going to get these things out monthly. By the way, that's more complicated than you think. It requires a federal waiver, which is never easy, but we're pursuing that. And as quickly as we do that, we'll start getting these out on a monthly basis. But we are, as my wife mentioned, we are doubling that tax credit for families with children under the age of 6 to $1,000. That's not insignificant. $1,000 in this credit for children under the age of 6 years old. On the issue of the question of what more we can do on childcare, Senator Mitchell mentioned the work we're doing on stage 1 at CalWorks. We're also going to be creative, though it's not a surprise. Any of you that followed my advocacy for Proposition 64, we talked about utilizing some of the Prop 64 money to invest in our children, in our youth and families. 60% of the bucket that was set aside for that investment was for children, youth, and family. We talked about the importance of early support throughout the campaign, and now we are demonstrating that. And we are now seeding that fund. This is a growing fund over the course of many, many years with a down payment of $80.5 million from those proceeds for our ongoing child care expansion. This is in addition to January's $500 million. We are now putting $80.5 million into this program, and Senator Mitchell's advocacy, and because of her bill and her leadership, $54.2 million. So a total of $134.7 million of ongoing investment that will continue to grow is part of the new announcement today and our May revise. I won't regale you. I'll close. A lot of other things we're doing on early childhood screens, on preschool. You're going to hear a lot more about that. I want to have something to say at the May revise. But there's a deep agenda here, and I hope you're hearing it. An agenda on affordability, agenda on the cost crisis, and an agenda to support parents. Nothing more important we can do than support parents. Period, full stop. And it is part of a larger agenda you're going to be hearing a lot more from us about. And today is an important milestone. And again, we wouldn't be here making these announcements had it not been for the extraordinary leadership in this state capitol. So with that, I'm happy to step aside and have them answer any questions.
Governor, on the paid family leave increasing from 6 to 8 weeks, is the money for that coming from the reserve fund, or do we need to find a new source of money?
Yeah, we're finding what's the reserve, and because we'll talk more about that in the May revise, but part of it comes from reducing that $363 million reserve, but additional money is being found many different ways.
Yeah, so we're taking it out of the reserve fund and actually lowering what needs to be in the reserve fund and the required in order to be able to pay for the additional 2 weeks for each parent, meaning an additional month starting in 2020.
Yeah, but we are actively finding new resources and obviously identifying new ways of paying for this on a permanent basis. But this will provide the ability for us to make this expansion. The fund is actually well capitalized. Excuse me, I said 360. It's $3.63 billion currently in the fund. And you may have noted in that very long-winded January budget presentation that we're using some of our surplus to pay off some of the debt that previously had existed in that account that was used during the recession. That money also allows us to make this announcement today.
And so are you laying out a plan to get to this 6?
Yes, that's going to take some time. We've got this task force we announced in January. What's really great is when we made this announcement, it really lit up the phones. And we had folks quite literally, not surprisingly considering Ann's background, from all over the country, excited about it, talking about it, experts that are coming in, advising us, that are participating in our task force. And it's been informal. It's being made formal now. And all kinds of ideas have been presented. We're just not prepared. Again, I've only been here 110 days to announce what the permanent new source of funding will be to get us to 6 months. But this is the sequential announcement.
Governor, will that paid family leave also apply to like ailing grandparents? Senator Jackson mentioned we need to expand it.
Yeah, no, this is. Yeah,
Sorry, I just like stepped
no,
in
I
front
know.
of you.
This is what, by the way, she said she quits if I don't get this done. So this is real.
We heard, we started with 6 months for parents, but we really heard from people like Senator Hanna, Beth Jackson, and advocates about the importance of both. So the 2 weeks addition is for not only parents, but it's for the all the uses of paid family leave, which includes caring for ailing family members.
What about Ms. Gonzalez's idea for the up to $100,000 of income? What do you think of that?
Well, we want to expand income eligibility. We did it in terms of last year. There was a couple of bills to get us for low income up to 70% reimbursements. We'll work towards this. I mean, look, these are all stretch goals. Can't do everything overnight, but we're going to pursue. We'll see how far we can go. That's tough, but think people didn't think we can be where we are today probably 10 years ago. So I'm committed to the long run, and that should be on the table.
First thing, I'm having a baby in November, so if you could move that.
Good. Well, you should by the way, these are not just props. Take them home. Yeah. Okay.
So my question is that $80 million for childcare, specifically where are you putting that? Is that going to slots? Is that going to infrastructure?
Yeah, the $500 million was for infrastructure, workforce development, human, but physical capital primarily. That was the January budget. This is for slots. This is for expanding slots on an ongoing basis. That amount of money will grow as the fund grows, but it's a significant appropriation, the most significant appropriation in the cannabis fund of all the appropriations. As you will see, and I'll talk more about it later in the week on the May revise, we're also setting aside funds for the cannabis fund for other purposes, substance abuse, other related screenings, child, youth-related issues. Obviously, law enforcement, it's a bucket, and land use issues are another bucket. You'll hear more about that, but this is the most significant of those appropriations.
Do you know how many slots that'll find?
I don't have the back of the envelope, but on the May revise, ask me that, and I'll have an answer.
Looking ahead on Thursday, do you expect the surplus to get bigger?
Well, the markets are down today, so I may have to tack back. I don't know. It's look, these are estimates. Will be our best estimate that we put out on Thursday. A lot of the money is one time. The out years look to be modestly down. So there may be modest increase, but there's a modest decrease in the out years. I don't want to get ahead of myself on the announcement, but that's broad strokes of preview.
2 more questions.
Do you have an expected cost for the extra month of paid family leave?
Yeah, I mean, this is expensive program, and we'll get to all that. Give us time to flesh this out. On what we're doing today, I'll announce that on Thursday. I'll give you the details on that Thursday. I thought on the 6 months. We're figuring out the 6. I'm still committed to 6 months, which is in the billions of dollars, and that we don't have an exact number yet on that.
I wanted to ask you something about something that your staff has said, and I believe even your chief lawyer has said that she has appreciated working for a feminist governor, and I just wanted to ask if you identify as a feminist, and if that is
Yes, I'm a feminist, proud feminist. I don't know. I mean, yeah. I mean, but every enlightened human being should be a feminist. I don't know what it doesn't mean. It means I'm for equality, full equality. But feminist means this too. It means I struggle with balancing the words with deeds. I mean, there's nothing. I think this whole issue of the disparities is really about equal weight at home, and that's a struggle. And it's a struggle for my wife. It's a struggle for spouses all across this country. And men don't fully appreciate. They really don't. I'm always being reminded of this and reminding myself of the amount of time that's sort of invisible You know, just scheduling the kids, scheduling the caregivers, scheduling the after-school programs, the soccer programs. You know, dominantly women are doing that as they're working, as they're expected to, you know, be there emotionally for their husbands that, you know, still need, you know, a lot of help when they get home after a tough day. And, you know, it's remarkable how tone deaf some men are on this topic, and our politics is on this topic. And so I think feminism is a lot more than just supporting policies. It's trying to change the culture, and the culture of caregiving is a big part of that. And I think that's perhaps the biggest of all the issues, is until we address taking care of the kids in every way, shape, or form, and what that means, not just being there physically, but building that architecture around raising a family, then I don't think we'll ever have real equality in this country. And so feminism is an aspirational frame from my perspective, because I got a lot of work to do on that, but it's a point of view and a point of advocacy that I enthusiastically embrace.
Governor, on the, I guess building off of that, you know, this event started with the first partner offering her remarks and talking about some of her work on this. So I'd love to know on all of these issues, the first partner's involvement and sort of what was the division of work between the two of you on getting.
Well, this is all predicate. I mean, this is baseline. This is table stakes. This is you're not running for governor unless conversation. Yeah, or you're not going to work here unless. I mean, this wasn't negotiable. But I don't think we'd be together if we thought it was. I don't think she would have married me if she thought she had to fight for these things. I think, you know, fighting to prioritize, to highlight, that's a different question. But to know that it's inside me, a recognition. Look, I grew up as a single mom. I saw this, and I saw her struggles and what she went through, and, you know, a teenage single mom. And, you know, came from no wealth and worked those two and a half jobs, part-time bookkeeper and part-time real estate, and worked for Aid to Adoption of Special Kids, and, you know, worked at Ramona's restaurant in Santa Fe. I mean, she just, like so many people, putting it together, but also raising two kids and trying to struggle and balance these things. And so, you know, I have a bias. That bias has been formed through my life, my childhood. Bias was brought to the fore in terms of the work I did as mayor. You know, it's still interesting. I was just doing a video celebrating, and forgive me briefly for this, 15 years, a former police chief of San Francisco, happens to be a woman, Joanne Hayes White. She had a retirement. She lasted 15 years. And I was commenting in the video that I remember appointing her, and I had just appointed the first female police chief, and then I appointed the first female fire chief, and I had a well-known political figure in California call me and say, hey, we get the symbolism. You don't need to do that anymore. And that was a well-known woman. And I thought, wow, we've got a lot of work to do. And so I've been at this a while, and I've been trying to make a case and push cause. And I think, we're 71% of our staff are women in the horseshoe. And they're all in the most senior positions. I'm really proud. I remember in the campaign trail, people said, would you commit to 50%? I said, no. And they said, how dare you? I said, well, how dare you? Why limit it to 50% women? I mean, that's sort of a limiting belief in and of itself. Why that ceiling? Should be the floor. So I'm very proud of that. And by the way, and I think, Hanna, we could confidently say this. I don't think you and I ever thought of it. We weren't saying, give me the women binder. Just give me the best folks. I mean, look around me right now. This happens to be the core of the leadership in the Capitol. Happen to all be women.
All right, thank you all very much for coming out. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that's enough of my sermon. Thank you guys very, very much. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to so much next week with the women. So you'll be all always a pro speak. Yeah, it's always a pro speak. I know. He's been seeing it every day. I know. I love it. We're going to still
Making
work
this
on
happen.
our Kate Committee goes on the assembly budget.
You guys should do more.
We are.
Good.
I think they're going to, it'll be the budget. No, it's great. They've been really good.
What I want.
Yeah, we have to increase it from 70 to 30.